Resume recording. Hi, everybody. My name is Christopher Garcia. I'm the Small Business Development Specialist at the SBDC at UNM Valencia campus. I will be coordinating today's webinar in the background. If a little bit about the SBDC is our mission is to build skilled entrepreneurs and strong businesses by offering no-cost or low-cost training events and no-cost counseling. We have a sister program. The name of that program is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And our speaker today is Elythia McAnarney. I can't do it. I'll let you introduce yourself. And
Okay.
and she's a PTAC advisor with our PTAC Center. And PTAC's goal is to help small businesses go into the government contracting arena. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Elythia. And
Thank you. You got it. That's fine. Good morning. I'm Elythia McAnarney, as Chris said, and I'm looking forward to our time together this morning. I am going to go ahead and share my slides, and we'll make sure that they're working before we go any further. Let's see. I'm going to change swap. Okay, come on. There we go. There we go. I wanted to
you're good.
swap some. Is that got it?
You're good.
Okay. I was like, okay, it just didn't want to cooperate so far. There we go. So the Procurement Technical Assistance Center is funded by the Defense Logistic Agency as well as the state. So any services that we provide are free to you. They come out of your taxpayers' money. So we're here to help you. And we do a lot of stuff together with SBDC and SBA. So we work as a team to help you grow. So hopefully you'll find this helpful and useful this morning. We're going into Introduction to Government Contracting. Now, keep in mind, this is an overview. I'm going to talk about a lot of different stuff and just kind of touch on it. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, and then Chris will ask them at the end. But keep in mind, each one of these topics as I go through them is basically a seminar in its own. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but I want to give you things to think about. Is selling right to the government for your business and how to decide? Now, the government isn't just federal. It's also state, local, city, and counties, public schools, tribals. So there's a lot to consider. It's a very open market for you. And you will receive a copy of these slides after the presentation. So if you have any questions or any comments, write those. You don't have to take pictures of the slides because you will receive them, because I know how that is, trying to write everything down. We're going to go over 10 top contracting questions for you to consider, and who PTAC is, what we do, and how we move forward in helping you. I don't assume we will take the full time period that we've allowed it, but I want to make sure you have time for questions, and hopefully we can answer your questions. Okay. What do you know about government contracting? What's the hardest part of being an entrepreneur, business owner? And what's the best part? Now, if we were in class where I could see everyone, we'd take time and go through those questions in a little bit more detail. But knowing about government contracting is a real key on moving forward. The hardest part of an entrepreneur is you're the business owner. So you're doing everything and you wear a ton of hats and understand it. But at the same time, it's your business. So anytime you're working on it, you're working toward your future and making it happen, making your dream come true. And remember that, even though it gets tough, you've got to remember that it's your dream. Let us help you move it forward. And that's what we're here. Does the government buy what you're selling, your products or services? And can a startup business obtain a government contract? Yes, you can. And there's different ways of doing that. Do you need a business plan and how will this help? I would highly recommend getting a business plan together. And SBDC, Chris, and their groups of people can help you with that because that makes you think of how you want to go and what to consider. The other thing is, once you get a business plan, it'll help you get set up for a line of credit. Does that mean you're going to need credit or to use that money up front? No. A line of credit is going to show that you are financially stable to be able to handle a contract. That's why your business plan is so important in moving forward because it shows you have a direction. It shows that you are looking to the future and how you are going to move forward. So we'll get into a little bit more of that. Federal certifications. There are different federal certifications out there that are ran by SBA, but even though they're run by them, we at PTAC can help you get the right documents together and help you upload them into the correct system because each one of these has a different system and they can be a little cumbersome. And trying to understand which documents are acceptable and which ones are not. So, and how to move forward. All of these rely on you on being in the system for award management, and I'll go into that a little bit. But each certification has its own qualifications, and they're all valid for some time except the 8A. And I pause on the 8A because 8A is a great program if you qualify, but it's only for 9 years. So you do not want to rush into an 8A certification until you're ready so you can get the full benefit of being on it. And we can help explain, Chris can help explain it as well. But as we move forward, you can understand what the requirements are. So these are all certifications that are out there. Because the federal has goals, they have to be met by prime contractors as well. 25% of all prime contracts need to go to small businesses. And this is usually the breakout they do it. Now, that's the breakout for the government, okay? Prime contractors could have different breakouts on what levels they need to meet. So they're all out there. Am I contract ready? Okay, remember I said you wanted to have a line of credit? Can you afford to wait 90 days on payment? And you're like, wait a minute, I don't know about this. The reason we put this up front is because when you put your invoice in, the government doesn't want to wait 90 days to pay you. That is not their goal. But they only can pay you if they have an acceptable invoice. Sometimes the invoice will go through to a certain process and gets kicked back to you because a code was incorrect or something was misstated, whatever. It may take you 5, 10, 30 minutes to fix it, but when you resubmit it, the clock starts over again. That's why things like that are so important to understand up front. Do you know the regulations? And I'll get into these a little bit more, but do you understand what regulations you fall? If you're construction, do you have a safety rating? Is it high? Do you have the licenses or the professional supervisors in place? And do you have a good track record in all areas of your field? Those all take into consideration. when they're moving forward. And what happens when you win a contract? You get in the door and it allows you to build your reputation, and more contracts can become available. So that is what we're trying to do, is help you get in that door, help you go move forward and stuff. Now, remember I said we have 10 top contracting questions. So we're going to start with number 1. What services, products am I providing and where? It's like, well, I don't know. Okay. Do you understand the North American Industry Classification System? That is where you identify your products or services, and they go by that code. Now, they'll start at the NAICS code for federal government. They'll start at the NAICS code, but some of the government agencies will go down to a lower code, which is federal supply codes or products and service codes. We can help explain those and show you where those are. These first 3 are all for federal. Now, when you're doing something with state and local, they go with the National Institute of Government Procurement, NIGP codes. And that's a whole different set of codes. So something to think about. The NAICS code. This is what the NAICS code looks like, and this is just a sample. But you can see there's different NAICS code, even though we pull up just fencing here. But what part of it? The federal supply code. You see those codes are a little different right here. Do you know what yours is? And where do you fit in? Product service code. Those codes are different in moving forward. Do you understand where you fit on that? The NIGP codes, the National Institute, these are the state and local, and these are totally different. See the setup here. Now, they'll usually go with the first 5 codes here, but these last 2 get it in deeper or lower level, I should say. And there are links on here that will help find these codes. Where? Are you going to start with local, state, tribal? Which state? Are you even thinking international? I would suggest you start local and in state, but it depends on the services and the products you offer. And meeting with a counselor or meeting with somebody can help you identify where to go with that. Okay. Number 2, am I registered in all the appropriate databases? For federal, you need to be registered in the System for Award Management. That is the SAM system. Okay. In that system, you will get a unique entity identifier and a cage code. We can help you through that process. Right now, it's a little sticky, but it is doable. The Small Business Administration, going through SAM, you will go into the Small Business Dynamic Search. And that system, you add a little bit further information. And that's how the government will look for you. Look for your resources and who's available. Each city, county, state, labs, military, they all have their own registration site. So identifying who you want to work with will tell you what sites you need to go to in order to receive notifications or to work with them. So it's not something you can just look at and say, oh, I'm just going to take my chances, because if you're not on the site, you're not ready. Some have sites and some do not. Do you know which ones they are? This is the System for Award Management. Right here, this is where we would register, get started, renew, and this is the link there. We'll talk about this site in a little bit, but this is where we would register you for SAM. Remember I said SBA systems and dynamic small business search. This is where the government will look at keywords and NAICS codes. Teaming partners can also look on this site. This site is open to the public, except for personal information that is not going, your banking information, certain other information that you put in SAM will not be available to other people, but who's registering, where your company is, your address and phone number, those will be. What we do not want is this here. So when we go into SAM, this is all coming from the SAM system, but we have to go one more step in SAM and put in a short capability statement and your keywords. Because once they identify a NAICS code, then they can do a sort and go further down with keywords and looking at the capabilities. Now, if you can see, there are 3,523 that came up on this particular search. Anyone that has nothing here, they're just going to let it go. They've got plenty to select from. So they're not going to do anything with these. They're going to go back and look at these quick capability statements, 1 to 2 sentences. It doesn't have to be long. And then go with that and see who they want to check further. Because they can do a short notice with 3 companies and allow them to bid without going full and open. So these are all that are showing on here are small businesses. So you want to make sure you're in there at the fullest. With the state of New Mexico, you have the registration at the state site. Now, I showed you up front that there were different certifications. Those certifications were for federal, okay? For state and local, they don't use all those certifications, but what they do use is they have in-state business preference and a veteran-owned business preference at this time. And in order to get that, this is the link that you would go through to register for that. Once you register, then you will receive a certification. So when you bid on anything in the state, you want to make a copy of that certification and make sure you include it with your proposal. And that's how these two, federal and state and local, are different in that manner. Okay? Am I aware of all the regulations? And there are a lot. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Do you have insurance? Do you have bonding? Do you need bonding? Do you have license, certifications? And if so, which ones? In the efforts that you are providing, do you have clearances? Or are you able to get those clearances if they're required? Do you have a safety plan? Depending on the type of work you do, you may need a safety plan. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a big issue moving forward. Are you aware of those regulations? And those regulations are not just federal, they're state and local. Federal acquisition regulations, the FAR. For your product and services, do you know what FAR requirements are going to be accessible to you in order to meet those requirements in the request for proposal or request for information? State procurement code, local ordinances. Those are for your state and local bids. Do you know which ones apply to you and what you have to meet? Those are all things to look at. And remember, I said your business plan is a very important part. Your business plan will lay out how you see your business moving forward, and that will tell you which regulations you really need to be interested in looking into further when you're going through all this, because it's just a little bit at a time you want to move forward. You can't take that whole elephant and eat it all at once. You've got to move forward a little at a time, but it can be done. Okay? So, do I have government-oriented marketing materials? In that, do you have a capability statement? In our marketing class, we talk about capability statements, and it should be a one-pager, front and back. You can use both sides. It doesn't have to be just front. And tell the government in very short, concise words what you do and what you can do. Show your NAICS codes. Now, in this one, I would definitely have two capability statements, one for federal and one for local. Why? Because one's going to have NAICS codes and one's going to have NIGP codes. That's going to be the main difference between those two statements, capability statements. Everything else, your words, your keywords, your location, will probably be matching the same. But those codes are going to make a difference. You do not want to give a federal government agency or buyer a statement with an NIGP code in it, because it doesn't mean anything to them, and vice versa. So those are things you want to keep. Business cards. Do you have business cards? Remember, a business card has two sides as well. On the front of the business card, I would put down your business, who you are, your contact information, and all of that. But on the back side, I'd consider putting, and not filling the backside up by any means, but I'd consider putting keywords down. So when the person you gave that business card to goes back and picks it up, and they're going, I put this in this pocket for a different reason. Now I can't remember because I didn't have the time to write on it. At least if you have a keywords of a few, it will kind of help them remember why they put your cards in that pocket and not with the others. Little things like that. The other thing is, do not laminate your cards because they cannot be written on. Yes, they look nice and yes, they look professional, but they're not useful. And the person you're giving it to, sometimes they like to write notes, they like to do that. And if it's laminated or picture perfect or slick or whatever you want to call it, they can't write a quick note on it because it erases or it just doesn't accept it. So things to think about. Do you have past performance? Do you need past performance? What problems can you solve? Those are things you want to think about. As you move forward, these are the different agencies you're going to be talking to in the federal arena. They're going to be the OSDBU or the contracting officer or the program manager or procurement center representatives. These all exist in the federal arena. In the state and local is the chief procurement officers. And here's the site for those. They usually list them on there with a phone number. Right now, I don't know how updated it is, but it still gives you a place to start and who you are looking for in that area. So there are ways to figure out who you need to talk to. What is my government marketing strategy? Okay. What do you have? What are you looking for? Are you going out there as a prime or looking to subcontract? Are you looking to team with other companies? Are you going to start with state and local and work up to federal, or are you going right into federal? We offer a service called Bid Match. We PTAC. And that will list different opportunities that are available that are either sources sought, requests for information, or requests for proposals, and it will give it to you. We provide that service to our clients for free. What we do is when we meet with you, we will get your keywords and move forward and set up your bid match. We do not use NAICS codes in this area because a NAICS code can have a huge variety underneath it. And if you haven't looked at NAICS codes yet, as you move forward, you'll see, and some of it you will meet and some of it you won't. If we use a NAICS code, it will give you everything. So we want to focus that down a little bit by your keywords. That's why we don't use NAICS codes. Some people say, yes, sir.
Can you please tell us what prime means?
Prime would be the ones that can meet directly with the government contractor. A prime would have the actual contract and be responsible for the whole effort. Okay, so the prime has responsible for the whole effort. Whether they meet it or not, they may need to subcontract to do parts of it, but the prime is responsible for the entire effort. Does that make sense?
And the follow-up is that like the general contractor?
It could be. A general contractor could be the prime, or they could be a sub under a prime contractor. A subcontractor would be doing a small portion of the big picture. So you could have the big picture here, and the prime is overseeing the whole thing, and they could have someone doing one part and other people doing another part. And if someone doesn't make it, the prime is responsible to make sure that all of these are done within the time period.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so that's why you want to start most of the time we'll suggest you start as a subcontract. So you start to get into what is it, what you're reading, and what you're responsible for. Because the prime is responsible for everything that's on that job, even if they're having somebody else doing a portion of it. Okay. Request for proposals, request for quotes, invitation to bid. When a proposal comes out in one of these three areas, the only person you can talk to is the contracting officer. That's the only person you can talk to. Okay, so by the time it comes out in that area, hopefully you've seen a request for information or a sources sought. Now, if you see any of these two, that's the time you want to get in there and find out anything and everything you can about that effort. You will be able to talk to the end users, the program managers. You can have questions going in, letting people know you're interested. That's the time to get on a team or be part of a team, create one, whatever it takes to do that effort. But requests for information, if you are a small business and you can do the effort or feel you can put a team together, that's the time to let the government know that you exist. Because if they have 2 or more social economic businesses, they can put that effort to that area. So if they have 2 or more women-owned business, veteran-owned business, or whatever, they can assign that to that group. So the competition is smaller instead of full and open. But if they do not know you are out there and only one person says, hey, I'm a small business and I can do this, it will not go to small businesses. It will go to a large business or full and open. And you do not want to compete against full and open. You want to have a better chance by having that effort to a specific area. Small businesses, women-owned, veteran-owned, or whatever. Okay? Because then that takes all the big boys out. Now, just because it comes out as a small business, whatever, doesn't mean you can't work with a prime and have that prime under you. And that prime being a large business, excuse me, working with a large business under you and having them do some of the work, depending on what's involved. Okay? So these are the type of efforts that come out that you want to keep an eye on. Understand how the state buys. That was all federal. This was all federal here. The state will use those terms as well, but they're looking for best value at lowest cost for the taxpayers. Open and fair competition and transparency in all purchasing. What they mean by that is that sometimes what they do is, depending on how they put the bid out, they will have an opening of all the bids open to the public. So you can see all the bids. They may say, okay, the bid right now based on price is going to go to this particular vendor at this time. However, behind the scenes, they're going to make sure they're technically acceptable or whatever, they meet the requirements. But all the information is out there. So when you deal with the state, if you include anything that's proprietary to your business, you need to make sure it is marked. Otherwise, it is let out. So you need to be careful, not only for the federal, because you want to mark it too, but definitely for the state because of the way they have the openings for bids. So those are things to keep in mind. They also have the registration with the site, the different site. Oops, sorry about that. You want to register at the state purchasing site and make sure you have the commodity codes. And you want to definitely, if you are in state, you definitely want to get that certification, that in-state certification. So if out-of-staters come in to bid on a specific project or services, you have that advantage of being in state and you can prove it with this certification. So that's why some of these bids go out of state, is because they can, for whatever reason, they're able to have somebody here, or the way they put their business together and do it. A lot of things are being done virtual now, so it's opened that door even more so. So you want to make sure you have that in-state preference, and we can work with you. We, SBDC and PTAC, can help you get all of that in order. So you're not alone. What pricing will I use? That's a big question. You want to make sure whatever you do in your pricing, that you are not losing money. Because if you start losing money, you're not going to be in business very long. And there is commercial pricing versus federal pricing. And I'll explain that in a little bit. There's some sources called General Service Administration, GSA. You can look at that site just to kind of get an idea what prices are for specific. And there's tools that can be considered as you're moving forward with pricing. For federal, we follow the FAR regulations, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, Subpart 31. What that tells us is what you can put in your price and what you cannot. So some pricing, Some items are going to be allowable and some are going to be unallowable. Do you know which ones they are? And when I say unallowable, that doesn't mean it's unallowable for your business. You got to keep that in mind. Unallowable is unallowable to put it in your rates to charge to the government. But you still want to keep track of those costs because they're true costs for your business. And when you're doing your taxes and other things like that, or your commercial contracts, you can include those costs as part of your price. So what are they? This subpart 31 in the Federal Acquisition Regulations will tell you what's acceptable and what is not. So that is something to keep in mind. Do I have my accounting practices in order? Okay. Hopefully you're not just doing your accounting on the back of a napkin, that you have something in place. Worst case, and I say worst case because people start with an Excel worksheet. Okay. But do you have it organized? Do you have everything in order? It doesn't have to be fancy, but you do want to set it up properly. You want to be able to say you are following acceptable accounting practices. FAR Part 31 will help you with that as well. Because if you get a federal government, you probably end up putting an invoice in the wide area workflow. Remember I said, if something's off, you will get kicked back and that time clock will start again. So you want to make sure you have all these in order and that you can capture everything of how you're doing your accounting. What are you spending? Can your accounting system do the following? Segregate direct costs from indirect costs. Direct costs means costs that are only for that specific effort, and that's why you're gaining those costs. Indirect cost is running your business, your office staff, your president, if you're not working on a project, your supplies for the office, your computers. Those are your indirect costs. You need these in order to run your businesses. Can you sort them out? Can you segregate direct costs by contract line item? A contract line item is if you're bidding, they could have on your contract, they could have that you're doing a certain amount of work and this is what you're going to get paid for this type of work. And then if you're working on this work here, down here, this is what you're going to get paid for this work. They might run simultaneously or they might run at different time periods. Can your accounting system accumulate those costs so you can show how you got there and why you're bidding or pricing or invoicing this? General ledger controls. Accurate timekeeping. That is so important. Your timekeeping. How are you doing your timekeeping system? It doesn't have to be electronic when you're starting small, but it does to have policies in place so people know what they are expected. Do they fill out their timesheets daily, which is part of the requirements? Worst case, first thing the next morning for the day before, but you don't want to let it go, especially if you've got several jobs going. How are you going to remember which job you worked at what time? Okay. Segregate the unallowable costs from the allowable costs. Unallowable costs for the government is like, you may have a company expense. You may do a Christmas party. and you bring everyone in and have a Christmas party, that's an expense for the company. It's a legitimate expense. However, the government doesn't want to see that in their indirect rates. That's part of you running your company. So that needs to go into unallowable. There's a way of doing certain types of activities with your employees. Do you know what to call them and how to move forward? So, teaming, meetings, moving forward with that. Some of those costs are allowable, but you need to know how to call them and what not to call them if they're part of doing business. We can help you through that. What are the different contract types? This is really important to understand. They are firm fixed price, time and material, cost plus fixed fee. Most of you will start with a firm fixed price contract, okay? When you bid a firm fixed price contract, you're normally just giving them one price and it covers everything. Be careful. Be careful when you put that together and just don't shoot from the hip. You want to make sure you understand what the cost of running your business is and that you're proportioning it properly to that effort. Because remember, a firm fixed price contract, when you sign it, you state it that whatever this work is, this is the price to complete it, no matter what. You may get done sooner, so your firm fixed price may be an advantage, and you might have a little bit more leeway, or you may not, and it's costing you more to profit away from you because you forgot a line item to price a report that was due, and that's taking you 8 hours that you didn't price in there. So even though it's firm fixed price, you still want to price each item out so that you know what you're covering and what you're covering. Because normally a firm fixed price, all you're giving is a price, one number. You're not breaking it down for the government. You're not providing them any further information other than that price and that you are going to meet this effort under that price. So you need to be careful. Time and materials. That has to do with you're going to do a certain rate for no matter how many hours it is. So you might have a $10 an hour rate, and if they give you 10 hours, that's what you're going to multiply it by. But that $10 has indirects and has a buildup and includes your fee. The government has the right to request an audit on time and materials and cost plus type contracts. They can look at your indirect rates and see how you're putting them together to make sure there is no unallowable cost hidden in them. So that's why your accounting system is so important to have it laid out. Now, the type of awards and any of those 3 that we just talked about as contract types can be on these awards. There can be a purchase order. So if they're buying certain things and they just don't know exactly how much they want yet, or they want to have the flexibility of saying, on purchase order 992, I want to buy 2 of them. So you already have your price negotiated. You already have all the terms and conditions negotiated. And now when they call and say, purchase order this at this amount of services or products, that's what gives you the right to bill them. A standalone contract is a contract that you won out of competition, and you're the only person or only company that can do that work. Those standalone contracts, they can be given in a couple of weeks, or they could take months before they're awarded. It depends on the effort. Indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity can be one or more contractors. There might be a bid out for people to bid on just to get that type of contract. There may be 20 companies that bid for this effort, but only 5 received it. And just because you received this contract doesn't mean you have any work on it yet. What it did is it gave you the right to bid on the task orders that will be associated with that contract only against the 5 that won, or whatever they designate. So now, instead of being full and open, the 5 that were selected to have that particular contract, they're the only ones that can bid on it and provide the work. You've already negotiated the terms and conditions, you've negotiated the price, and you've negotiated deliveries, whatever. But that's how it is. So just keep in mind that just because you have it doesn't mean you have a dollar awarded to it yet. Blanket order agreement. That's another agreement that they have it open. So if they need that information or that product or services, they can reference that agreement number and say, please give me this. And here's your agreement number that gives you the right to bill me. So these all have little intricacies involved. Okay. Number 9, excuse me, I'm looking at the top 10. Number 9, how do I find opportunities? That's a great question. One of the things I talked about was the bid match. The bid match we put in as keywords, so you will get notifications. But even at that, you still need to market yourself. They're not all going to come to you. You need to understand how to market, how to move forward. You can look at opportunities in SAM. SAM now has the opportunities listed in them as they come out. And you can put yourself on a list, so as the things get updated in SAM, like a sources sought, which isn't a contract, they're just looking for information. So you can keep up to date on what's happening with it. You can contact the Small Business Office, GSA Library. SBA Contracting Staff Directory has a list of procurements out there. Procurement Center representatives, commercial marketing representatives, they have a list of people that you can contact. And for existing contracts, you can use the USA Spending Acquisition. You can also use the SAM. Those are things that we can show you how to use and how to move forward on those. You have resources. You have the Small Business Administration. You have the Small Business Development Center, which Chris is part of. You have SCORE, which offers small business mentors and advisors. And you have WEST, which is also for small business assistance. We're out there to help you. Most of our service, for PTAC, our services are free. Here, most of I would say 85 to 90% of their services are free. They do have a few that they do charge, but it's not to make profit. It's because of the speakers they might have training, or who you are working with, that they might have an advisor that's coming in with a specific topic that is needed at the time. Okay. I know one of the examples is QuickBooks. The advisor that comes in to speak on that does have a chart, so they put it out with a small fee. But the resources they provide are fabulous. So take advantage of them. Use all of us. And I will give you a little secret here. Any small business company that uses all of our resources, okay, that's PTAC, SBA, SBDC, SCORE, and WEST, that uses all the resources has been able to become profitable within a shorter period of time than those who do not. Just a little insight. Here's our links for resources, PTAC, and some of our resources here. What is my next step? Okay, where do you go from here? Well, meet with a PTAC advisor. Get to know who your advisors are. Rick Crest is SBDC. Get to know him. He's a great guy. And I know some of the companies that he works with, and they can't say enough about him. Okay, meet with a PTAC advisor. We have 4 locations statewide. However, we cover the whole state. We do one-on-one counseling. We can do it in our office, or we can do it via Zoom, depending on where you're located and what your preferences are. The bid match program, other states, and I keep saying this, we do not charge our clients because there are other states that provide bid match program for their clients, but they do have them pay for it after a certain period of time. So I think we're very fortunate here in New Mexico to offer it to our clients for free without a limitation of time. So something you want to get involved in. We can help clients register in the different program, your certification programs. We can help you to look at them and see if you qualify. And if you do, when and what needs to be done. Market research and analysis. We can help you find who the buyers are that you want to get to know and move forward with. Marketing, how to market your company. This is a big one. Proposals and RFP reviews. You're not out there by yourself. If you find something on Bid Match that you're interested in responding to, get with your PTAC advisor and say, listen, I found this. I want to look at it. Does it make sense? Work with your PTAC advisors and they'll help you go through the review process. Look for different things. And if you want to move forward, you go back and you start working it. And before you turn it in, we can be your red team to make sure that you've answered everything the way they want. There is an art to it. And we can help you with that. Okay? But don't do it the night before, please. Because I can't tell you if we're all available at that time or not. Because we have other clients too. But if you give us a heads up, let us know what you're looking at, we can help you. Contract administration. Do you know what you need to do? Do you know how to move forward? We can teach you that. We can teach you what you need to look forward and move forward in your business or the contract you just won. Little tips and things like that. So you're not out there by yourself. We are here as resources for you. And don't ever think of it as I've called and I've talked to her 3 times today. She's going to want, no, I know sometimes I can get on the phone and I get off the phone and say, darn, I should have asked that question. And here we go. Okay, you're no different. I'm no different. So we work with it. Okay. That's why we try to schedule time so that we can sit down and talk, or we can view, because sometimes we just need to talk it through and go forward to see what makes sense. Our roadmap is that we help get your NAICS codes, bid match, your marketing research materials and stuff. So we can help you with your accounting so you know how to set it up. Can't do it for you because every business is different. Okay, and how you want. But your market research, identify, qualify opportunities, networking and matchmaking. We offer a matchmaking almost every quarter, one with the federal government, one with schools, education, one with local and state. We are now putting together for the first time an industry day, which is the prime contractors can meet subcontractors or small business to help them meet their small business goals. So we're doing an industry outreach day, and that is on October 26th. So if you have, what we want to do before that day is make sure you have a capability statement, make sure you're in SAM, make sure you are ready to meet these primes that are looking for small businesses. So that you not come there and just say, I can do this, but I don't have anything ready. Well, that's not what they're quite looking for. They're looking for companies that can step up to the plate and say, yes, I'm in SAM. Here's my capability statement. Here's my card. Can we set up an appointment other than this time together to go into it further so I can see how I can help you meet your goals as well as complete the effort? We can work with you to do that. Right now, we have are getting industry and responses, and I'm still adding to that list. Things to keep in mind. These are stats of clients we've helped, primes in contract, and contracts that they've gotten. Okay, we keep all of that stat. These are our office. We have one in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Clovis, and Las Cruces, but we handle the whole state. This is our team. Albuquerque, Steve Hogan, myself, and Steve Stewart are in Albuquerque. Clovis, we have Johnny. Las Cruces, we have Karen. In Santa Fe, we have Gillis. He has just joined our team this week, so give him a little chance, but he'll get there and he'll be ready to go. Our program manager is Teresa Rivera, and our admin assistant is Tracy Edwards. And if you ever have any questions or any questions about any of us, these are the two to go to. And they're on our website. This is my contact information. And if you have any questions or need anything, I'd be more than happy to work with you. Chris, are there any questions or anything? I know we finished a little bit early, but this is an overview. Like I said, every topic can go further. And don't hesitate to get with one of us and we'd go further with explaining.
Perfect, thank you. I have one question. It says RFI, is this about a specific bid? RFI is sent in a document in a Word format or in a template document. Where is the RFI to be sent?
Request for information is an RFI, And it's usually coming out in SAM, or sometimes it'll be on the bid match when you get it. And it won't ask for a full proposal. It's looking to see who has the capabilities to do the effort that they have listed in that particular announcement. So let's just say they're looking for someone that has janitorial. I can't think of anything right now. And maybe they're looking for someone specific to be able to handle 10 buildings once a week, twice a week. Do you have the cleaning crew? Do you have the supplies? Can you do it in those so many hours? Or, are you capable of handling that? Are there any vendors out there that can do it? If they get responses, requests for information saying, yes, here I am, I can do it, I've done this before, then they can put it out for small businesses. If they don't get any responses for that information, then they'll put it out for large businesses to go after. So the request for information is coming out, state and local. It could be a newspaper, or it could be on their website. Each one is different. Federal, it's going to come out on SAM, or it's going to come out, it should show up on bid match. Now, I will tell you, and this I go into in marketing, if the bid or the request for information comes out and it's under $10,000, they can go into the small business dynamic search and pull out 3 vendors that are listed there and just send them the request for information or the proposal itself to respond to. And remember, I said marketing is a big thing. If they know you and they think you are able to do it, they can send you the request for proposal without going with the request for information. So those are things that you want to keep in mind. But a request for information is they want to know if there's any small businesses that can do it, and if they are in a social economic group. I don't know if I answered the question correctly, but you will see them in SAM. They will show up on the bid match once you get registered with a PTAC Advisor. They can set you up on that.
Perfect. That particular client put her phone number in the chat, and I'll make sure you get that. Okay. And there's another question. Will the presentation slides be available? I put them in the chat, and then when the recording is ready, I will email them with the recording link. And then there was another question about resources. Where can I find resources for women small business advisors? Could you share the slide again with West and SBDC, if you don't mind?
No problem. Let me go back. I'm gonna go. Right there. These are the resources that are available, as well as New Mexico PTAC.
Perfect. Thank you. And especially for women, West is also known as the Women's Business Center in Albuquerque. And they provide a lot of great assistance, and they could actually lend. So if you're interested in a loan, you could get in touch with West, and they actually lend. And there's a person in the Q&A. She says great information. She'll be in touch. Let's see what else we have. Oh, can you show your phone number? Okay. And then after that, can you show the 10 top questions slide again?
Yes. Okay. I didn't like that. I was like, okay, wait a minute. There we go.
Yeah, pricing. I remember when I was in business school many, many years ago, they used the example of a company called Magnavox, which isn't around anymore. I think it's Sony now. But they were going out of business, and they had applied for a government contract to provide electronics to the federal government. And then they started to go into bankruptcy, and the new executive, even though that they were going to lose money on the project, still completed the project at a loss, so they would be in good standing with the federal government. So yeah, pricing is very important.
Yes, that's why your accounting system and your accounting practices are so important to put them up front and to know.
And there are a lot of consultants and like accountants and bookkeepers that cater just to government contractors, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's a different kind of accounting system.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help?
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, can you help with tribal contracts?
Tribal contracts? Yeah, we can do any, all of them.
Okay, that was just a question.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you gonna say about accounting?
In your accounting systems, a lot of small businesses forget to, and this is more in our accounting class. Like I said, this is just an overview, but in our accounting classes, what we try to show you is how to set it up with numbers. Have your accounting book set up with numbers, and it shows your assets and your liabilities. And there's a certain way to set those up. You want to start with those off the bat because you don't want to change them later on.
We do work closely with the Native American PTAC though?
Right.
Oh, that's a comment from Therese.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess you have a special PTAC for just the Native American.
We do Adolfo. Adolfo works with the Native American PTAC, so he would help a lot with that.
Adolfo's been at it quite a while.
Yes, he has, and he's great. He's great. So, but yeah, he definitely start with him if you're working with him. But if he's not available, we're here to help.
Perfect. And I'm going to open it up to any of the attendees if you'd like to raise your hand and speak. And I'm going to open it up to Therese, if Therese wants to say anything, or Tracy.
Just thank you, Chris. This is Therese. Wanted to say thank you. Shout out to the Valencia County SBDC and Elythia. Great job in your presentation.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you. Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. You always do a great job with it for us.
Thanks, Chris.
And I'm in my orange shirt, that's why I wanted to hide. I'm in my Zoom is showing my shirt is very orange today.
It looks great on you.
Thank you. Reminder to everybody that we did record. I'm going to stop the recording now.